Honda Touring Accord that is turbocharged, but it's a special kind of turbocharging. 2.0 liter Honda 4-cylinder engine with a turbocharger. Realize Honda has been turbocharging cars for a long time. It was first in their Acuras in a 2.3 liter engine, and they understand turbos, but strangely enough, they don't make the turbocharger in this thing. They buy them from Mitsubishi. Mitsubishi makes them, and Mitsubishi makes them in Indiana. They make them in the United States. Honda knows where to get the right stuff from, and even more interestingly, this is just a simple turbo. It's not one of those dual setups. It's one stage, it's not two stage. Honda went a different way than everyone else. Instead of making more and more expensive, complex, and more liable to break down turbos with all these new innovations, they use a simple design, and they have variable intake that Honda engineers design. Now an intake just sits there and sucks the air, and it's variable, so you don't get much turbo lag. But since it's just sitting there, it opens and closes a little, but not spinning like a turbo. It can last forever. The fancier they are, the more they cost, and the faster they break down. They went for reliability, which is Honda's name. That's how they sell these cars. They're reliable. Then people say, oh, they have oil dilution problems. This guy was smart. He can get the 1.5 that has oil dilution problems. He got the 2.0. They have no oil dilution problems. And I kind of agree with Honda's engineering here. Of course, a lot of the cars have 1.5s. They're cheaper to make. They get a little bit better gas mileage. The bigger the engine, the more it can handle turbocharging. I just live in fear when somebody brings me a 1 liter 3-cylinder car with a turbo on it, thinking, okay, 50, 60,000 maybe, then something's gonna blow up. These don't have problems. When Honda started putting them in the Acuras, I never saw a single one break down. Now the owner's telling me the gas tank is too small as far as he's concerned. He said the best he gets is 20. It's rated at 24, but he gets 20. Part of that is because it's a turbo, and part of it is because a lot of the gas mileage ratings are just pure and simple lies. Realize in the United States, they only test a very small percentage of cars for gas mileage in Michigan. They don't have the facilities to test them. They go by what the manufacturers tell them. So this is rated at 24. The best he ever got was 20. I've been in Lexuses that were rated at 32, and I got 22 in them. Didn't matter if it was eco mode. He gets 20 in eco mode. I drove the Lexus, had it in eco mode, drove to San Antonio, Houston and back, got like 20 miles a gallon. It doesn't matter. They're bigger engines, the turbos have a lot of power, but don't think you're gonna get great gas mileage in one of these things because they're fast. But at the same time, don't worry about oil dilution problems. These engines don't have oil dilution problems. And since Honda's the #1 maker of internal combustion engines in the world, I'm assuming these things are gonna last quite some time. He's had it for 3 years now, and he doesn't have a lick of problems with the thing, other than the tires. Low profile tires. You can watch my video on why I think they're stupid. Well, he agrees. He loves the look, but he's popped 5 tires so far, and he said the tires are useless in the snow. And this is Rhode Island. It does snow here in the winter. If you really wanted to drive like a maniac in the winter, you'd really have to put some snow tires on it. Now, the owner's 20 years old, and he admits that he loves the lane departure. He said it saved him a bunch of times when he was screwing around, then didn't notice, and boom, it jerked him back away from it. If you're not like old Scotty and really know how to drive a car and pay attention, you might find these systems are just what you need. It's a 4-door sedan. Everyone wants SUVs. Me? I'd rather have a sedan. It's more fun to drive. There's a lot of room in the back seat. It's not just tiny little kids can fit in those things, but it drives more like a sports car. They don't sell all that many of these because people aren't into sedans anymore. If you can find a good used one, jump on it. He bought it brand new and he's happy with it. He's having no problems at all. These are really cushy seats. They're very comfortable. They remind me of BMWs. They're very comfortable seats. He was complaining though that the leather in his friend's Jaguar was a lot smoother than his, but he did have a problem with the gas. They fixed it. It's supposed to be electronic, and it's got one of those capless systems, which I abhor. But then again, it's built by Honda, unlike the ones that Ford made that the metal corroded and they wouldn't work right. This thing's made out of plastic. There's one thing about plastic: it doesn't corrode. And it's got adaptive suspension in the back. This thing really rides like a dream. Honda's a good engineering company. A lot of people are scared away by the turbo stuff, but shouldn't be in this. Now, 1.5 liter, yeah, that's another story. I'd be afraid of that too. But these 2 liters, I've never seen any problems. One of the best engines they make. Think of Honda. What did they do when they built their ultimate sports car, the S2000? Guess what? They put a 2-liter engine in the thing. So let's take it for a ride. Happy entry music. Now it's a Honda, so you know it's going to start. Starts right up, and this has the crazy push button stuff. You know it's going to work, but look at the panorama backup camera. This isn't guess you're getting close. It's got everything on it. You can make it small, you can make it big. You can do whatever you want with the thing. Look at that. It's insane. He said he's not lying. He's getting 20 miles a gallon driving the thing around. Favorites to the head-up display right in front of your head, okay? Where are you looking? When I'm driving, I'm looking ahead. What I really hated about the Tesla was when you wanted to see stuff, you had to look way over here. That's distracting. In front, that's what you want. Let's do the bump test. Here we go on the bumpy Rhode Island road. All right, not bad for this horrendous road. Rides a lot better than the Tesla did. This is a very bumpy road, realize that. Well, let's see what this turbo engine can do. It's winding up. Whoa. Not bad for a sedan. So it's got plenty of get up and go, but it really handles well. It really is a sports sedan. Honda's into suspension systems too. Like I said, it's got variable suspension in the back. It's a very fun sedan to drive around in. Now, the owner might only be 20 years old, but he's wise beyond his age. And he did all kinds of amortization of depreciation. Oh, he liked driving around in the Audis all right, but rather than lose all his money, he decided this was a very wise financial decision. There's hope for the future. Of course, it's got all the tech. It's got the wireless charger, navigation, everything you could possibly want. There's so many different things. He went out of the car, so the remote's gone. It even tells you that. It's a marvel of technology, but it's Honda technology. Honda technology generally holds up. And yeah, problems with the 1.5 liter turbos. I have no disagreements with that. But this is a 2-liter turbo. They don't have problems with anything. They're really solid built engines. I think it's probably, like I said, 2 liters is one of the best engines Honda's ever made. And they can take it. This engine can take it. And the turbo on it is some fancy dual blah blah. No, it's a single scroll. But it's got a fancy intake system that Honda designed. They have excellent engineers, and I think they really outdid themselves on this particular sedan, the Touring. Now, it's a beautiful car. There's no arguing that. And when you consider Honda's technology, personally wouldn't have any worries about this 2-liter turbo. Interesting design. He hasn't had a lick of problems with it other than the low profile tires, which I can't stand. And he can't either. He says they really look cool, but they're always popping in the potholes of Rhode Island. So now you know a little bit more about turbocharged cars, especially this Honda Touring with a 2-liter turbo. That's a simple single scroll with the technology in the intake. So rather than having the moving parts being complex, the non-moving parts are more complex, which I'm going to break down. Sure, maybe you're going to have to change a gate, but it's going to be a heck of a lot cheaper than buying a turbocharger. And since these are Hondas, I have personally yet to see a Honda turbocharger break, though they are Mitsubishi turbochargers, like I said, made in the United States. So the world spins around, and Honda seems to be doing a pretty good job keeping up with the rotation. Right here I have a brand new Camry a guy just bought. Why do people buy them? What do they have in them? Well, you're going to find out. Now, anybody who knows anything about cars knows Camrys can last a long time, but people say, oh, they're boring. I don't want a boring Camry. Well, let's see. They really don't look boring anymore. They really up their designs. Wheels, this new one, he averages about 37, the top's about 40. Plenty of power and great gas mileage. And it has tried and true technology. First of all, it has a real key. And under the hood, it has a 4-cylinder inline engine connected to an automatic transmission that is not a CVT. It is not one of those CVTs that shift weird, feel weird. It is an 8-speed transmission, an actual automatic transmission. Now, in the past, when Toyota started putting multi-speed automatics, some people whined, I don't like the way it feels. They go for gas mileage, yes. And the earlier ones, sometimes they'd hunt between gears. We'll see how this one goes, but all the newer ones that I've tried out, they don't have the hunting problems that the old one does. Understand one thing about Toyota. They build something and they gradually work at perfection. They've been making Camrys a long time. They see something's wrong, they fix it. The original Camrys, yes, they were kind of ugly. They did run forever. They tried different variants when they tried those Lyras that were kind of fancy ones. Some of them were convertibles. But their basic four-door transportation car has just basically gotten better and better as time goes on. They find problems, they perfect them. They're not like the Americans who, well, that model didn't work, let's throw that away, let's try something else. No, they have a different philosophy in Japan. They want to gradually improve how they make things. Now, granted, in the past, they weren't much on style. Well, they certainly have gone way past that, and their style has changed immensely. Nice interior, black and chrome, and of course, it's a four-door. Plenty of room in the back, and at the same time, they have a really good combo of rideability and handling. Some people who really want handling, yeah, you wouldn't buy this. You'd buy the Camry TRD. It's got a much stiffer suspension, corners like a scalded ape. I mean, they really are fun to drive. But I took my wife on a ride in a TRD. She hated it. And she's driving a 20-year-old Lexus. She likes a nice, smooth ride. I take her for rides in regular Camrys. She loves it. It's just that the TRD has a really set-up suspension system so you can zoom around like a lunatic. That's not Toyota's market with this Camry. It's for people who want a nice four-door car that can run forever. I see them all the time, 5, 6, 700,000 miles on it. Change your oil every 5,000 miles. These things will generally last indefinitely. This 2.5 liter engine is excellent. Of course, it's got a timing chain on it. And the small problems that Toyota had ages ago, like my grandson's 2007 Camry that's got that horrible four-cylinder engine that they made for a few years that burnt oil like mad, that's way in the past. These aren't oil burners. And as we go inside, start her up. I notice they've improved their interface here. It used to be it sat up too high. Now, from where I sit, it doesn't block the window at all. It's more integrated. I would like it a little bit lower myself. I would have designed it a little bit lower, but that's what Toyota's doing. Fancy automatic transmission. You can go eco mode, normal mode, sport, or if you want, you can shift it yourself. Very easy to use. And since it has an actual automatic transmission, you are actually shifting gears. This isn't a CVT that's pretending to shift gears to the marvels of modern computers and hydraulics. This is actually shifting gears. We'll try it out later. Now the seats are faux leather, but they're very comfortable, and this stuff tends to last quite some time. I really like the combination because nothing wears like fabric, so the stuff you're sitting on is really comfortable, but it's still got a leather look to it. And I personally kind of like this. It doesn't have a sunroof because I personally think sunroofs are the dumbest thing on earth. What do you want a sunroof for? It just gets heat in. And anyways, with a solid roof, you're safer. That's part of the strength of the vehicle, a solid roof. I would rather have a solid roof over my head than some stupid sunroof that might shatter if something bad happens. You can see it's got the automatic high beams. You can turn the traction control off if you want. Simple setup, heating and air conditioning. I hate when they have all this stuff hidden up here on the computer. We got to scroll through a bunch of crap to get the heater or the AC on. This to me makes more sense. There's the defrost. Automatic. You can set the temperatures very simply. Turn it off if you want. Turn it on again. Then when you change the speed, you just push the button here. You're not pushing your fingers all over. Much easier to operate. So let's take it for a spin. It's smooth as can be. Decent backup camera. Nothing outrageous, but yeah, it's a decent camera. Typical Camry. Smooth. Shifts like a dream, like I say. These don't hunt for gears. And this is just a normal. It's not a TRD, but you want to zoom around. There's another one. They're everywhere. Same color, too. So you can get 40 miles a gallon on a highway, and it's getting 37 around the city with a regular transmission. You don't have to sacrifice power and smoothness for a CVT. This is power and smoothness, and it's an actual automatic, like I said. And as we go down the road, we'll try the old brakes. ABS works phenomenal. And here we go to our little drag strip. We're almost there. Makes a nice throaty sound too. It's not dull like the old Camrys. It leaves a little bit of sound. And nobody's behind us, so we can come to a stop. And we'll turn the traction control off. And here we go. Smooth shifting, listen to it. You can barely feel it shift. Like I said, these new multi-speed transmissions Toyota has, they got most of the bugs out of them. But just for giggles, let's put it in manual shifting. Here we are in second gear. Ooh, that was pretty fast. Downshift. Hey, it downshifts quick. Look at that. Hey, I gotta say, the manual is not like the older ones. They had kind of a time lag. This thing is crisp. It shifts manually smooth. Now, when it's an automatic, yeah, it shifts perfectly smooth then. But if you want to have a little sporty fun, just put it in a manual shifting. And you can see it's got lane departure because, see, it's warning us. Warning, warning, do not drive over the yellow line. Warning, warning. Well, I'm getting older. Maybe I need that now. I don't know. Then again, my wife said I needed it years ago. Well, in my defense, it isn't that easy to drive fast, film, talk, and think at the same time without running into something. And as we come to a stop, nice and smooth. And look, it's not turning itself off. I love that. I hate that auto start stop. I find it annoying, and I think Toyota understands that many Americans find it annoying, so this doesn't have it. I love that. Most of them you can turn them off by pushing the button, but you got to keep pushing the stupid button. I have it in eco mode. Let's see what that does. I don't know, it doesn't seem eco to me. It's still got plenty of pickup. Some of those eco modes are slow. Hey, it didn't slow it down one iota. It's got the modern conveniences right there. It's telling you the speed limit. And unfortunately, you can also see it from the passenger side, so my wife would see how fast I was going over the limit. Well, you can't have everything. Usually the heads-up display, this doesn't have it. You can't see from that side, so I would rather have a heads-up display that has a speed limit on the windshield where I can see it and my wife can't. Now, even though this isn't the Camry TRD with the really trick suspension, this thing still is fun to drive in the twisties. It still has pretty crisp handling, no particular over or under steer. Of course, it's beeping at me now because I'm not using the turn signal while I'm playing around. Now watch, I'll put the turn signal on. Now it won't beep because it knows I have my turn signal on. So I guess that system won't help those crazy people that are driving down the highway with their turn signal all the time, because it won't beep at them if they go over the line because they have their turn signal on. So machines can't keep fools from themselves. Realize that. They're not miracles. Fools will still continue being fools, whether computers are advising them or not. So there you have it, a 2022 Camry. Now, the owner traded in a Mustang that had 14,000 miles. Not because the Mustang was falling apart, but because he didn't like 13 miles a gallon anymore. And he's getting almost 40 on this thing. And he says this is just as much fun to drive around. It really handles quite well. And I do have to say, for all the people that whined about Toyota multi-speed automatic transmissions, hunting for gears and not feeling right, this feels perfect. Whether it's by itself, extremely smooth, or putting it in manual and really zooming it. That's what impressed me, because the older ones, you'd shift them up and down manually. There'd be a little bit of a wait, sometimes even a second, for it to go up or down in gear. Felt sloshy. This didn't feel sloshy, because realize, this is not a CVT transmission. It isn't doing fake gear changes, because CVTs don't have gears. It is changing actual gears. It's going 5, 6, 6, 5, 4, whatever. It says on the dash what it is, but it actually works like most things Toyota. It doesn't look boring, it doesn't drive boring, and really, he's got 30 grand into this thing. The average car is now 49 grand for a new one. Ha, pretty good deal if you ask me. Okay, everybody knows Honda Civics are well-made cars, but like everything else, do they make them as good as they used to be? Are they worse? Are they better? Or is it a bit more complex than that? Now, of course, these cost a lot more than the early Civic. They bought this for $25,300. I remember when you could buy it for $2,500. Showed my age. Now, I do have to say, They're beautiful cars now. Look at the original Civic that actually listed for $21,550. It was an ugly car. This is not an ugly car. And strangely enough, guess where they're built? Jolly old England. There it is, UK. Don't go saying, oh my God, it's an English Honda. The English make junk. I'd never buy one of those. Look, they're just putting them together there. The engines and everything, they're still coming from Japan. They're just putting them together. And understand one thing. Most Formula One race cars are engineered and designed in England too. Decent technology for building things. They just don't have the money and the infrastructure to do the whole thing. The parts come from Japan, but they're put together in England. And as you can see, this is not like a Tesla. This is a uniform gap. We follow it around, and the other side. It's also a uniform gap. Honda cares about quality. This isn't Tesla trying to scam everybody and making junk. They make solid, reliable cars. And of course, under the hood, there's modern technology. It's a 4-cylinder engine, and unlike the old ones, it's got a timing chain, not a belt. That in and of itself is a better idea. You don't have to mess with the rubber timing belts. I saw a 2020 Honda Odyssey the other day. It still had a rubber timing belt on it. Who knows with that, but this has a timing chain. Better design than the older ones. But now here comes the quandary. Honda makes more internal combustion engines than any other company in the world every year. But this is a 1.5 liter. Honda seems to have fixed their oil dilution problem with their software and the new GF6 oil, but still, you're not going to get the same lifespan. We won't know for years to see how long these last. But from my experience with Hondas, they had turbocharged engines for ages. I've seen them still going pretty strong with 200,000 miles on them. You get power and gas mileage. They are still light cars, so 37.4 miles per gallon is something that's as zippy as this thing. Not a bad deal. And just like Toyota, Honda makes all their own automatic transmissions, and they do a pretty good job. Because I had a customer in Houston that had a 2010 Civic automatic, and he burned the transmission out. The older ones, a little bit weak. The new ones, no. So in this case, the transmission, as complex as it may be, is probably a lot better built than the older ones were. And of course, they're all modern inside. You know, they're beautiful looking cars. And unlike the early Civics, they actually have leg room. And being a hatch, of course, they're handy. You got room, decent, drop the seats. You got a whole bunch of room. I'd say that from the front seat to the back here, that's about as much room as the entire N600 Honda that I bought in 1970 that I'm going to try to get running again. So they're a lot bigger than they used to be inside. And of course outside, they're still an easy car to park and drive. Let's take it for a spin. Now it's a Honda, so of course, starts right up. The AC works perfectly fine. And you can see he hasn't even taken the plastic cover off the screen yet. No shaking. It does have electronic stuff like the old ones did, an electric parking brake, electric brake hold. No, that's electronic crap I really don't care about, but that's the way they are these days, so you gotta live with that. I'd rather have the mechanical emergency brake. It's gonna last forever and never break. You can see it's got a real wide backup camera. You get a really good view and it's very crisp. Now you're in a Civic, so you're relatively low to the ground, but not too low. They are fun to drive in the twisties. They're lower down, and this is a Sport, so it's got a little better suspension system on it for ride. There's no problem taking curves. It just follows you through. Doesn't oversteer, doesn't understeer. And even though I got the air conditioning on, it's still a pretty quiet car. It's not the little rust bucket early Civics that rusted out, clanged at every turn, rode like a washing machine. No, it's a completely different vehicle to that. That's the technology in here alone you can understand. Fun for taking a drive out in the woods. And now we're gonna see what it does in a straight line. So we'll slow down here, and we'll let that guy get way ahead of us. As long as there's nobody behind us, we'll wait a little while longer. Starts out slow, but once that VTEC kicks in, smooth, seamless shifting, decent amount of zip. We were going 70 in no time at all. And it's got very responsive steering. This is an old country road that goes all over the place. Hey, it's got no problem. You want to do a little zigzagging? These are fun to play around with. Yet for such a small car, it still rides pretty good. A lot better than the older ones. So is the handling. Now, of course, it has all those modern things like lane departure that tells you when you get out of your lane. We'll see if we can get it to work. Well, that didn't work too good. I really departed the lane, and the warning didn't come out. So much for their lane departure system. That's why I don't trust these things. Don't think these lane departure, blah, 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 it's gonna save you. They won't. You gotta use your eyes. You gotta look in the mirror. We'll try it again here, okay? Look, I went outside the lane, and it didn't put anything on. Let's follow it a little, and then pull over slightly just to see if we go real slow. Okay, there. It says we departed the lane, but I had to do it extremely slowly to make that light come on. So don't bet your life on these systems. Unless you're a really slow driver. You still gotta watch what you're doing. These are zippy cars. They handle responsibly. Learn how to drive it. Don't depend on some kind of crazy safety system that may or may not work. Now, granted, this is a brand new Honda Civic with some new designs on it, but going by the history of Honda, I'd say it'd be a very reliable vehicle. But as will it go 300,000-400,000 pretty trouble-free mileage like an old Honda Civic did? Only time's gonna tell that one. But the overall drivability, comfort, ride is infinitely superior to the older Civics, and of course, it's not an ugly duckling like the early ones. It's a beautiful looking car, especially the sport version that's put together in England. And sure, speed burners are gonna say, I want a Civic Type R to race around in. They cost a lot, they're really fast, but they ride like iron buckets. If I had a choice and I was driving from Tennessee to California and back, I'd take the Civic Sport long before a Civic Type R because it rides nice, it's smooth, and it's plenty fast enough for driving on interstates. I would not want a Civic Type R to drive thousands of miles in. I think my back would give out. They're still solid made, there's no arguing that. You're getting an awful lot of technology, but Honda makes good engines and transmissions. 25 grand? What kind of fun are you gonna have in a modern car at 25 grand? The average car is $36,000 to $40,000 these days, and this is certainly more than your average everyday Civic. I even asked the owner if he wanted to trade it even for my old Celica, and he kind of laughed, but he's thinking, well, maybe I could auction that off as Scotty's car, but I'm afraid he'll probably have to wait until I'm dead, because that's how it always goes. When somebody's dead, then everything goes for a bunch of money. That's why artists fake their deaths. And everybody, if there's an old sick artist, they'll start buying their art up. That was a lot of fun, and now you know the truth about a modern Civic versus an old-fashioned Civic, so you can make a wise choice yourself. Today I'm going to talk about the best basic car ever made, the Toyota Corolla. And to understand why, here's a little history lesson. Ford made the Model T, saying you can have it in any color you want as long as it's black. And old Henry, he proceeded to sell 15 million Model T Fords. And things are certainly different in those days. My grandfather was a mechanic in those days, and heck, he said you couldn't go 20 miles without having one or two flats that you had to fix, and you had to continually be working on the engines. And the old hand crank ones are hard to start, but hey, they were basic transportation. Now the next big basic car was the Volkswagen Beetle. The Volkswagen, people's car. The Germans eventually sold 21 million VW Beetles, but there's a really interesting story about the origin of the Beetle. Because amongst the many bad things that Adolf Hitler did, he was also a cheating car salesman. He had the idea of the people's car. Ferdinand Porsche designed it for him, and they sold millions of Reichsmarks worth of credits for building Volkswagens for the average people. But sadly, old Adolf never built a single Volkswagen for the people that put all their down payments on. He took the money and he made military hardware in an attempt to take over the world. But strangely enough, after the war, when the company started mass producing Volkswagen Beetles, the Germans that could prove that they'd put their deposit down, they all got it applied for new Volkswagens after the Reich had fallen. And strangely enough, the Volkswagen, a car built upon fascism, ended up being the hippies' mode of transportation in the 60s. And the world turned upside down on that one. During this heyday of the Volkswagens in the 1960s, Toyota, a little somewhat unknown company in the United States, started producing Toyota Corollas in 1966. They're still making them today, and as of 2017, they'd sold over 44 million of these Corollas. And you might well ask, how did they sell so many? Well, the things hardly ever brake and can run hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of miles, pretty much trouble-free. And I know people say, oh, they're such boring cars. Well, if you want an exciting car, one that you never know if it'll start when you turn the key, the Corolla's not for you, because every time you turn the key, these things start up. This particular one is a 2004 Corolla, and it's only got 196,000 miles on it, so the engine's basically broken in on this thing. Now, I've never personally seen one that had 1,000,000 miles on it. The most I've ever seen on cars that I worked on was over 600,000 miles. But hey, that's a lot of miles for a car that doesn't cost that much. And we Americans, being somewhat lazy when it comes to driving, this one has an automatic. Most of the ones sold in the United States are automatics. Pretty dependable. I rarely see an automatic transmission in a Corolla break down. And this one has 4 doors. There's plenty of room inside. Heck, both of my sons were born in hospital here in Houston. We brought them back in a Toyota Corolla. And with the same Corolla, we drove them to high school too. Then they drove themselves later. Christmas time, we stuck the Christmas tree on the top and just tied it down with twine. And my favorite all-time work car was a 1981 Toyota Corolla SR5 hatchback that I could fit all kinds of tools in by popping the seats down. I could get jacks in there, I could get all kinds of stuff in that car. I had that thing for 30-something years. Then I sold the car to one of my customers who had a Ford that blew an engine, and she drove that thing more mileage in 3 years than I'd driven it in 30 years. And they really don't require all that much maintenance. I got customers with them. Some of them have 300,000-400,000 miles. Bought them used with 200,000 miles for very little money. All they would do was change the oil and filter. And if anything like the brakes and stuff would wear out, they'd bring it over here and I'd fix them. But the engines, transmissions, all original and still running fine. So if you're the type of person who's not really into cars, you want some basic transportation that's going to be reliable, get good gas mileage, not break down anywhere you're going, you might think about getting a Toyota Corolla. It's a wise move for one who thinks that cars are to get you from here to there. That's their main purpose for many people. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.